Welcome back to another episode of Her Expat Life. Our mission is simple. We aspire to advance and empower the lives of women who live and work abroad. Her Expat Life is a boutique global mobility firm that provides services to female expats and digital nomads who are entrepreneurs, creatives, professionals, investors who desire to advance their global lifestyles, network, and portfolio. With more and more women living, loving, working, and playing abroad, we have created a unique menu of services tailored to the community we serve. And you can visit our website, herexpatlife.com, to get a comprehensive understanding of all the things we can give you to help you advance your global lifestyle. Today, we are going to be speaking to Marta Mascheroni from Lexidy, Italy, which is an Italian based law firm, to talk about a very, very exciting piece of news that was recently announced, which is the Italian Digital Nomad Visa. Before we jump into that, let me just explain to you exactly who Lexidy is. So, Lexidy offers services related to immigration procedures. They work with Italian inbound immigration. They cover all jurisdictions, mostly focused on the States, Canada, UK, and Australia. They offer assistance with visas as well as Italian citizenship applications. And they like to be a one stop shop, assisting their clients from beginning to end. So I'm so excited to welcome you, Marta. Thank you for speaking with us today.
Thank you, Alexia, for having me.
Amazing. So, Marta, before we dive into it, we were chatting a little bit before we started our recording that this is quite a new announcement. So, if you can just tell us, like, when did the Italian government announce this and how does this impact the information that you're going to give us today?
So, as always, as Italians like to take things slow, so the digital nomad visa has been in the making for a while. It was finally released almost a month ago. So there hasn't been like a track record. There's no track record yet of how the consulates are going to handle the applications. It is pretty much newborn baby right now. So some of the answers and some of the information I gave might sound a little vague compared to other kind of visas that have been in place for a longer time. But we're liaising constantly with consulates. And of course, I'm sure that the information we will provide updates as soon as the consulates provide specific guidelines.
Okay, thank you so much. Then let's dive straight into it. So, why should digital nomads consider Italy?
So, well, aside from the obvious comments about the food and the landscape and the weather, I think digital nomads should consider Italy because they might be surprised by the vibrant expat community that's been built up in the last couple of years. I think this is a time of change and of great opportunities as Italy is opening its doors to this new kind of immigration. So I think it's not only going to be a big chance for foreigners to build a new life in Italy, but also for Italy to experience a great socioeconomic growth.
Okay, so what is the digital nomad visa for Italy and who is eligible to apply for it?
So the digital nomad is a type D long stay visa, which is targeted to highly qualified workers that work for or with Italian or foreign companies, and is specifically targeted towards digital nomads, meaning self-employed workers that use digital tools, allowing them to work remotely, or remote workers. So employees or professional collaborators that use tools, allowing them to work remotely as well. And it allows them to live and work in Italy. I think it's important to put out a little disclaimer saying that the visa is actually only a travel document. So the visa will allow you to enter the country and travel within the Schengen area. Once you arrive in Italy, you have 8 days to exchange your visa for what's called a residence permit or a residence card that will actually be the document that allows you to stay here.
Okay, very, very, very good tip that people need to know about. What are the key benefits of obtaining a digital nomad visa for Italy?
Well, I think the one main benefit is the ability for foreigners to relocate to Italy for work purposes, especially with a fast track process and outside of the yearly quotas that are set by the Italian government. Considering that applying and obtaining a work visa in Italy, it's quite difficult, especially based on the small number of slots that are available yearly. That is why I personally think that the digital nomad is truly a game changer. And having a DNV, let's not forget, opens the doors to the rest of the European Union as well, providing with the chance to experience new challenges and to travel.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the application process. So, what is the application process? What documents are required, and how long does the process take?
So I know that bureaucracy is never the fun part of any process, but concerning the application process, the applicant will have to book an appointment at their local consulate. This can be done through the online platform that every Italian consulate has. It's called Prenotami, and they will have to attend the appointment in person. One very important thing to keep in mind is that the consulate will withhold their passport for the whole duration of the process, and they will release it at the end with hopefully the visa in it. When it comes to the documents, the most important documents for the digital nomad application specifically are related to the applicant's qualifications and employment. So both in terms of their education and their previous experience in the chosen field of work. For instance, if they're a remote worker, they'll have to provide a job contract. Besides that, the applicant will just need to provide a standard set of documents. So personal identification, proof of income, proof of lodging, and health insurance coverage. In terms of a timeline, the consulate has up to 90 days from the application when it comes to remote workers, because that sort of mimics the same process that Italy has for subordinate work visas. On the other hand, for digital nomads, it resembles the process for self-employed visa. So it can take up to 120 days for the consulate to issue the visa.
Okay, and then let's talk a little bit about if there's any specific minimum income or financial requirements for applicants.
So the applicant is required to prove that they receive at least 28,000 euros. Bear in mind, the amounts are going to be in euros. They were going to be reported in euros almost everywhere. So remember to exchange. So you need to show you have at least 20,000 euros per year that comes from a legitimately derived source of income. The requirement can be quite easily proved using your tax return for the previous fiscal year. And if you have a job contract, you might also want to provide the contract showing the income for the following year.
Are there any restrictions on the type of work or business activities that digital nomads can engage in while on this visa?
Yes, there are, and they actually apply to any work visa that's issued for Italy. So the DNV holder will not be allowed to engage in any work activity besides the one that motivated the issuance of the visa. So they should just stick to that for the duration of the visa. And yeah, again, that is a general rules that applies in case you're the holder of any work-related visa in Italy.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the average cost of living in Italy. More or less, what is the overall cost of living for a digital nomad in Italy, looking at housing, transportation, and daily expenses on average?
Well, that, as people that came to Italy might have noticed, very much depends on where you live and what sort of lifestyle you lead. As a general rule, bigger cities are more expensive than small towns, and the north tends to be a bit more expensive than the southern part of Italy. So it very much depends where you go. Also, in terms of housing, not only housing, but daily expenses as well. Supermarkets tend to be a bit cheaper in the south. One good tip, especially for digital nomads that will definitely require internet connection, is to evaluate the option of using a hotspot on your phone that is related to the data rather than purchasing like a Wi-Fi connection, a Wi-Fi contract, because they tend to be quite cheaper. And in Italy, your data plans are much, much cheaper than some other places like the US.
Okay, great tip, great tip. What is the duration of the digital nomad visa, and is it possible to renew or extend it?
So the visa can be issued for up to a year. And like any other long stay visa for Italy, they cannot be extended, but they can be renewed yearly as long as the applicant still holds the requirements. In concrete terms, what is going to be renewed is the residence card, so the residence permit. The visa will only be issued once, and this means that you will not have to go back to your country for the renewal process, but you will do that in Italy.
Okay, great. What are the tax implications for digital nomad visas? Sorry, for digital nomads holding this visa in Italy?
Well, taxes is another not very fun topic, but one that should always be kept in mind. So, what I always suggest is to engage a tax expert, a tax consultant before coming to Italy, because we need to keep in mind that Italy has a global income taxation system, which can sometimes be tricky if you don't know the ins and outs of it. Generally speaking, if one spends over 183 days in Italy, they will become tax liable. So there is a possibility that you will become tax liable if you come to Italy as a digital nomad. But there are different tax schemes that DNB holders can definitely benefit from.
Can a digital nomad with this visa bring family members or dependents to Italy?
Yes, sure. A digital nomad will be able to bring their core family along with them to Italy. And by core family, by law, we mean the spouse or children under the age of 18. It is a bit complicated at the moment. It's a bit uncertain because there is a fast track process for the DNB applicant, but it doesn't seem like the consulates also provide a fast track process for the family members. So we will need to see with time how the consulates decide to handle the matter so to align the two different applications.
Okay. And then, I mean, I would assume that if you're bringing dependents, then the minimum financial requirement would be more because then you're having to show that you need to support these dependents, I would assume, yeah?
Yes, there is usually an increase in the minimum requirements when you're bringing, and it is calculated per family member because in order to show that you can support them, you can bring them along with you at the moment of application, or you can go through a process of family reunification later once you're in the country.
Okay. And then are there any language proficiency requirements for applicants?
No, not at all. There's no language requirement. And in fact, you could very well be working for a company that's in your own country and speaking your own language or any other language you wish.
Okay, great. What are the healthcare and insurance requirements for digital nomads on this visa?
So, to apply for a digital nomad visa, you'll have to show proof that you have health insurance coverage at the moment of the application, and that has to be valid. So, it has to cover Italy and the Schengen area as well. The coverage required is not at all extensive. They just want you to cover the basics like hospitalization and repatriation.
So we spoke a little bit about the renewal of the digital nomad visa, but are there any limitations on the total time a digital nomad can spend in Italy on this visa?
No, there are no limitations per se, meaning you can stay in Italy for the whole duration of the visa, so the full 365 days if it's issued for a year. On the contrary, once you receive your residence permit, there is a limitation of the number of days you can stay outside of Italy. So you should stay in Italy for at least half of the duration of your permit. So 6 months. They don't necessarily need to be consecutive, but at least 6 months out of the 12.
Okay. Can digital nomads travel freely within the Schengen area while holding a digital nomad visa for Italy? Considering you've just said they have to spend at least 6 months in Italy. So would it be in Italy or the Schengen area?
Well, sort of. So they can travel around Europe, but they will still have to stick to the 90-day rule. For the other countries in the Schengen area, they are not Italy. So bear in mind, of course, this is something that can be a bit tricky sometimes because in other countries it works very different. In Italy, the 90 days are counted over 180 days. So it's not enough to just spend 90 days, go out for one day, and then go back in. Once you spend your 90 days in a different country, you'll have to go back to Italy for other 90 days.
Okay. Are there any specific accommodation requirements or recommendations for visa holders?
So the applicant needs to show proof of suitable lodging when they go for their appointment. However, at the moment, there are no specific indications when it comes to digital nomads. So we believe that every consulate at some point, hopefully soon, will issue their own guidelines. But as a general rule, when you're applying for a work-related visa, you have the option of showing that you're staying with a friend that's hosting you or presenting a hotel reservation when you go to your appointment. The one thing that we're concerned about and that might be a challenge for people is whether or not the consulates will require the applicant to have a lease agreement in place. So that we'll have to find out.
Okay, so this leads well into my next question. What are the potential challenges or issues digital nomads may face when applying for or holding this visa?
Well, at the moment, I can see lodging being a bit of an inconvenience more than an issue because it's never super smooth and a super easy process trying to get a lease agreement from abroad. We have partners that can help with that, but it's always a bit complicated. The other issue that applicants might face comes with the actual meaning and definition of highly qualified worker.
Mm.
Specifically, considering the consulate is the only authority that will evaluate the application, unlike the other work visas, we'll have to see how much discretion they will have in examining and evaluating whether or not someone qualifies as highly qualified, and especially for digital nomads, how strict they are and how they intend to evaluate and for the applicant to prove the use of digital tools.
Okay. How does Italy ensure compliance with the visa requirements, such as remote work and income generation? Particularly, I'm thinking for a freelancer. So, how would they go about checking compliance?
So compliance is ensured at the moment of the application. So the consulate will perform a very thorough examination of the income requirements, of the lodging requirements, and the work requirements as well. Then the Italian authorities will perform a quite strict double check, because after 8 days of your arrival, as we said before, you need to apply for the residence permit, and you will have to provide some of the documents that you use for your application again, and then the Italian authorities will assure compliance and that the visa was rightly issued. And the same, of course, will happen every time the applicant goes, so the holder goes for renewal. Every time they go for renewal, the Italian authorities will check everything again and make sure that they're compliant with the law and that they're not exceeding what their rights are based on the digital nomad visa.
Okay. And then, what are the fees associated with the application or maintenance of this visa?
So the fees are not crazy. The consulate fee is 116 euros to be paid upon your application. And the other fee you'll have is at the moment of your exchange for a permit, which is about 102 euros.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so I think that wraps up most of our questions for today. Marta, where can people access more information about the digital nomad visa? Because as you said, we know things change quickly, we know things get updated. So for someone who's interested, what is the best way for them to stay in touch or on top of what's happening with this process?
So at the moment, there's a lot of information floating around. If someone wants to have a good idea of the overall process and what that might look like, I personally suggest looking at the Consulate of Italy in London's website, because that is the only consulate that currently provides guidelines. Of course, anyone that is looking for information will have to remember that every consulate has the right to ask for different requirements. So it's not set in stone, but it gives you a very good general idea of what that entails. And of course, you can contact us at www.lexidy.com and we'll be happy to provide any information that we have.
That is so, so great. Thank you so much, Marta. That wraps up our conversation for today. So just a quick reminder to our audience, please get in touch with Lexidy Italy. We will put their contact details below in the information box to basically, if you are interested in getting the digital nomad visa or you want more information, Marta and the team are really wonderful, very, very clued up and are ready to help you make your dreams a reality. If you've been dreaming about moving to Italy and being a digital nomad, now is the time. So, Marta, thank you so much for being with us today and for taking the time to speak with us.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for listening. And thank you so much, Alexia, for giving us the chance to share a bit of our knowledge, because that's what we're all about at Lexidy, sharing knowledge and helping others.
Amazing. So if you've watched this video and if you've enjoyed our content, please make sure to subscribe and like. Please drop us a comment if you have any further questions or anything you'd like to know more about. And make sure to follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We're everywhere. Her Expat Life. Let us help you stay in touch and on top of all the information you need to advance your global lifestyle. And until next time, take care.